Okay, so today is May 4th, Star Wars Day. May the Force be with you. So, for this video, it's going to be Star Wars centered, or not centered, but I'm going to have it try to be Star Wars themed. Even though I'm going to try to talk about Star Wars, but I'm going to go into like other, talk about other things like Spider-Man. But I'm going to title this video Xylophone and Anakin Skywalker, because that makes up my gamer tag and my YouTube name, Xylophone. And I created this gamer tag when I think on Steam or Minecraft. I can't remember if it was, I think Minecraft maybe. I don't know if I changed my Minecraft name to Xylophone, but I think it started on Steam and Discord. But I was trying to be creative with my name, because my name before was like Big White Chicken, and I actually took that from my other friend who had Big Black Chicken, and we were kind of having like a chicken kind of theme, and I had another friend had like Big Jewish Chicken, and he was trying to, and we all had like our like faction, Call of Duty faction and stuff like that, and we even had a football team. But that was us being childhood friends, and me just, I was copying him, but it was also like I figured, hey, I'm his friend, and it's like it would be cool to have like another version of a chicken, and I just did that, but I feel like it wasn't much creative on my part. And later on, I was like, man, I want something completely original to me, something that I came up with and not taken from somewhere else. I understand art can be, we could take, when we create art, we could take inspiration from other people, and we could take a mix of other things and create our own original art. But and that's how a lot of art is created. That it's just a combination of different things, and mixing them together to create something new. And that's pretty much what I did with this username. But I took two different things that are aren't typically in the same sentence, or you wouldn't really attach these together, but for me it made sense, and it sounded nice. That was also a big thing. I was like, when people say my gamer tag and they call me, like when they're talking to me in the game, when we're playing Minecraft or when we're playing whatever game, and they tell me to come here, can you help me with this, whatever we're doing, if we're playing or if we're running from the killer in Dead by Daylight, hey, I need your help, he's on me, can you finish that generator, whatever it is. I was like, I want my name to have a ring to it, so when they say my name, it comes off the tongue, it feels, you like to say it, and it feels nice to say, and it's not I don't know how to explain it, but like a jingle almost, and but yeah, and I also want it to be kind of cool, so I was like, and it's also kind of similar to my name, Christian, if you think about it. But I was like, I also, that was, I don't know if I was thinking about this fully, but now that I think about it later on, because, how I would say it's similar to my name Christian is because you can call me Chris for short in real life. Like if you, don't want to say the full name Christian, you could just call me Chris. And I was like, that was the same way with Xylophone. If people don't want to just call me straight up Xylophone because it's too long, and they want to shorten it up, and give me like a, nickname, even though that is my nickname already, but you could just call me Xylo for short, and a lot of people did, and so I think I kind of changed my Discord name to just Xylo, but I want it to be the full Xylophone. But if you want to call me Xylo for short, that's fine. If you want to call me Chris for short, that's fine. So and it's what people prefer and how they want to call me. But I was I like that it's similar to my name in that way, but I was like, I wanted to have a ring to it, where people like to say the name. And so Xylo, I feel like it's nice to say. I like saying it. I like when people call me Xylo. It just like, I don't know, Xylo, like the way it sounds, like Z. And you don't hear a lot of Z words, so I just like that sound. But anyway, I took the name Anakin, Xylophone. And then I took the name Xylophone, that's where the Xylo comes from. And so, I didn't, I do now know that the xylophone is a musical instrument, and Anakin Skywalker is what was a Jedi before he became Darth Vader and joined the dark side. And so, he was a Jedi under Anakin, or Anakin, Anakin Skywalker was a Jedi under Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I think also Master Yoda. If I remember correctly, I don't know if Master Yoda trained him that much, but I think he was, his main teacher was Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think he betrayed Obi-Wan Kenobi and he killed him in the first movie. So, yeah. So I mean, Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader, but I combined the xylophone and Anakin Skywalker to create the name Xylophone. And so yeah, that is what I'm gonna name the video, and that's how I'm gonna have this video be Star Wars themed. And I don't know what else to say about Star. I will say this, I watched The Mandalorian and I watched The Force Awakens, the new Star Wars movie, and the Rogue One, and I liked them, but I feel like it was kind of overtaken too much about, no, not overtaken too much, but it had a lot of CGI, and it felt like it was made to be a blockbuster, popcorn eating movie. Like, let's get everybody in the movie theater and let's show a whole bunch of lights and explosions and fire and fighting, cool action scenes, and try to make a lot of excitement and laughs and oohs and ahs in the audience in the movie theater, and try to get an audience reaction, and it was like it didn't feel like it was trying to be a classic movie like the classics of the original Star Wars, like how classic they were. And I feel like, when the original Star Wars movies came out, it came out in an era, this is when Back to the Future was coming out. This is when, Rocky was coming out. This is when a lot of classic movies were coming out in the 70s and 80s and 90s, when, they were, getting into the movie magic, trying to, make fantasy and fictional books and stuff, because movies are based off of books, but to make it seem as real as possible, and to make you get into the story and get mesmerized, and just get into the characters and be invested in the characters, and make you make you get into that in another world and escape from your own, and getting into that, opening your imagination, even though they say that reading opens your imagination more and it's harder to use your imagination when you see it in front of you. But I still think Star Wars, because it makes you think, like, what if there is a galaxy far away, but and alien technology and stuff like that. But I don't want to get into if about what I think about aliens and stuff like that, but it's just like it touches into that fantasy mind of like, what would alien life be like, and just questioning that, and being able to see a version of that, or someone, because if you read the books, it'd be using your own imagination and what your version of that would be like. But seeing that movie and seeing the director, I think George Lucas, and seeing his version of that, it's just nice to see someone else's version of what they how they see aliens and outer space and all that stuff. And they put a lot of hard work into those movies, man, to make it seem as real as possible, with the makeup artists and the music, and the actors doing a great job. And you have to think about this, practical effects, props, realistic props, and all that stuff that they try to use instead of using CGI and putting I don't know, it's just like, you have to understand that they were using the technology was limited at the time, but they were still very creative with what they had, and still made it work. And I feel like the original Star, at least for me, I watched the first one now. I'm almost finished with the second one, The Empire Strikes Back. The Empire Strikes Back, but I'm almost finished with the second one. But I feel like they come off with more heartfelt, because it felt like they were more passionate about making that movie, because this was a time of big cinema, big blockbuster, big original classics coming out, because people were trying, people getting in movies. Color came out not too long ago. Color movies came out, and people were getting into what kind of stories can we tell on the big screen. What can we explore? Can we explore the Wild West? Can we explore outer space? Can we explore time travel, Back to the Future? Can we explore like so many different concepts and ideas, and having that opportunity to do it on a big screen and reach multiple many audiences across the world, that is a at the time it was new to everybody. And so, but as time goes on and as the years and decades pass, it just becomes a thing that, I mean, it's part of our culture now, but it seems like we've been trying to get back to that original feeling and the original, movie magic spark of, let's make a classic movie. And I mean, there are still classics that come out, and people that are trying to be creative and create a new movie, an original idea, and go down, have characters or do things that people have not done before. And I would think of A24 movies. They're a great example of trying original ideas and new creative ideas. And even if it flops or might not get that well of a reception, they still try something different and put it out there for the world to see. So that's admirable. But sorry, I'm going on a little rant. But yeah, they put a lot of hard work into those original Star Wars movies, and they come off like I like them because they come off authentic. Even though it's fake and it's aliens and all that stuff, it still comes off as authentic and real people made it, and real people were having fun making it. When you see them, like, you have to understand this is a time before phones and really when technology and computers and all that stuff took over and video games. And so this is when, like, I don't know, you have, their personalities were different back then. And so, to see them during that time and the way they were and I don't know, it's just like, it is different. The actors back then were different than they are now. And I'll have to make another video talking about the differences between old movies and old classic movies versus new movies. And I kind of already talked about it, but I really want to go into something else. And so now, I talked about, in the last video, the psychology of crime. Why do people commit crime? And I'm still curious and still trying to learn why people commit crime. And in that video, I said that I think people commit crime out of survival. And, either to, out of hunger or, they come off as sexy, okay? And so, I explained a lot about that in the video, but then I also said committing crime to help people, like Robin Hood, or like, helping the Jews escape and, get away and hide like Anne Frank, or like, helping the slaves be free in America like Harriet Tubman, and, or like, giving people magic mushrooms even though it's illegal and even though they can help people. So, things like that, right? That's what I talked about committing crime, why people commit crime. But I also want to talk about committing crime, I also say committing crime out of amusement and entertainment like the Joker. And I explain a little bit about that, but I also want to talk about if you're not committing crime out of survival, then why are you committing crime? And the other answer that I have is out of boredom, okay? And I say this, right? And I'm talking about people that are bored out of their minds and they have too much money and too much time on their hands, okay? And they probably have something against the homeless. They don't like homeless people, and they probably don't like mushrooms, and and probably are terrible cooks and don't know how to make healthy food delicious. And I talked about how, I don't know if I talked about it actually that much, but I talked about cooking and food and mushrooms before, but I'll say this for this video. Learning how to make healthy food taste delicious is part of developing the survival skill of cooking, because I feel like why I can give into gluttony is because I get bored of eating healthy food, or actually I think I get too lazy to make healthy food delicious because there's so many seasonings and so many things that we can do. Like it is so many possibilities how we can make a recipe, and we can make it so many different ways to make the same food. We cook it different flavors in different ways to make it taste completely different, and we could keep changing it up. But the problem is if we get lazy and lose motivation to do that, which is a sin and a sin of sloth. So when I say this is, I feel like I give into the sin of sloth and not feeling like cooking and wanting something quick and something sweet and something that tastes delicious immediately. And I'll give into junk food and overeat and eat too much and eat too fast of junk food and give it into gluttony, when I first give in to the sin of sloth, and I give in to being lazy and not wanting to make healthy food taste delicious, and put the time in to cook healthy food. And so I feel like, and that's part of, entertaining myself out of boredom too, because when you cook delicious food out of boredom, I mean, first of all, you're practicing your creative skills and you're opening up your imagination by, seeing different possibilities on how you can make a recipe in different ways. But you're also, exercising your creativity and getting your creative juices flowing, and also not expanding, but you're learning, testing your taste buds, and tasting different flavors and learning the distinctions between different flavors and different textures, and learning what tastes delicious to you and what doesn't, because cooking and delicious food is subjective. I can cook a very delicious meal to me, but it might not be delicious to my roommate or someone else. So even you have to keep that in mind too, that cooking and taste is subjective. But yeah, so I feel like I give in to the sin of sloth before I give in to the sin of gluttony, and then when I give in to the sin of sloth, it's more easy for me to give in to the sin of gluttony, and then when I give in to the sin of gluttony, I feel like it's easier for me to give in to the sin of lust. And I feel like when I give in to the sin of lust, it's because I've been overeating and I've been eating too much, and I have too much energy. I feel, and when I overeat too much, I feel lethargic and I feel like I have too much energy, and I feel like I have more energy to waste, and masturbating and wasting my sperm and my sexual energy. But that's what I mean about giving into gluttony. And then when I eat too much, I feel like I have I feel lethargic, I feel full, I feel like I just want to lay down, take a nap, and then I get lustful desires, and I feel like giving into lust because I feel like I'm lethargic, and I also feel like I have too much energy to waste. So I feel like it's kind of like I give into the sin of sloth first, and then I feel like I'll give into the sin of gluttony, and then I'll give into the sin of lust, usually. I mean, it doesn't happen in that order every single time, but I feel like that is common for me. But yeah, I feel like these people that commit crime out of boredom are bored out of their minds, and they have too much money and too much time on their hands. They don't like homeless people. They probably don't like mushrooms, and they're probably a terrible cook, okay? And what I'll say this is, what I mean by don't like homeless people is, the money, what we do with our money, I think is important, because they say, money is the root of all evil. And I don't think money is a toy to be played with. I think, because I don't think, money doesn't buy, they say this multiple times, but I do think this, and I know this, but some people have to learn this the hard way, that money does not buy happiness. And playing with money and using money as a toy to satisfy your boredom, money does not fully satisfy boredom. So it's almost like an addiction, and it is an addiction of trying to find different ways to satisfy your boredom with money, and it's going to be, it's impossible. You can't do it. And so, money, they say money is the root of all evil, but money does not fully satisfy boredom. And so if you're constantly relying on money to satisfy your boredom, for me, I could buy an expensive video game, buy a new game, but then I'll get bored of it, and then I'll have to buy a new game, and then I'll get bored of that. Or maybe I'll go to different places, use my money to go to different places like New York City or Los Angeles or Denver, Colorado, and travel to different places, but then I get bored of that. And then let's say I use my money to do something I've never done before, like go skydiving. I go skydiving multiple times, and then I get bored of that. And then let's say I just feel like you just keep doing that and doing that and doing that, and then you'll run out of rich hobbies, and eventually you're gonna be like, I don't know what to do, and you'll learn the hard way. Money does not buy happiness. Now, for me, I feel like I want to spend my money. Now, how everyone uses their money is on them, and it's their choice and what they want to do. But how I want to use my money is, first of all, I want to pay all my bills, make sure all my bills are taken care of. But I also want to use my money, make sure I take care of my groceries, first of all, because I feel like I can be an emotional spender if I'm being honest. If I get really emotional and have some money to like go and buy some like cookies and stuff, and I want to emotionally eat, and eat my feelings away. I feel like I do that a lot, and I've done that a lot in the past. But and that's what I mean by being an emotional spender, or no, going on to New York City, just in the spur of the moment, and spending a lot of money there. And so that's what I mean by emotional spender. So because of that, I feel like it could be hard for me to save money, because I could put a whole bunch of money back, but I get really emotional one day and then just take all that money and not go to the casino and blow it, but spend it on something out of an emotional reaction. But me knowing that about myself, how I want to use my money every time I get my paycheck is first make sure my bills are taken care of, but also make sure I have enough groceries and enough seasoning, and know that I'll be able to cook a meal for myself almost every day or every day. I do want to be able to fast like 2 or 3 days in a row and not be able to eat food, but I do want to make sure that I do have the food to cook something every single day, and also cook something different, and have the different seasonings, and allow myself to be creative with my cooking. Even though I might not have that much money to work with, I still want to take care of that. Now if I have any extra free money, I want to try to do something for someone else and give it to someone else. Now my family and roommates can be a great example, and like Mother's Day is coming up, so I would probably definitely this Friday I want to try to give my mother a gift for Mother's Day. So that would be me using my money to gift my mother a gift for Mother's Day. So that is me using my money not out of boredom, but to just show my mother love, and not use it to just satisfy my boredom and give me a quick dopamine that will go away in a few days or a few hours or a few minutes. Okay, so that's one example. But also, if I have any money left over, I want to give it to the homeless people, or I want to buy someone a Bible. That's another great way we could use money, because I don't want to get in an argument that say I wish Bibles were free, and I wish education was free, but Bibles cost money, and I feel like but what I can do in my part, what I can do is use my money to buy Bibles and give them to people free, and that's something that I want to do. And I've already given my roommates the Bibles, but I haven't given my mom a Bible yet, or my brother. So and I haven't given my sister one either. So I want to work with giving my family and my neighbors Bibles, since I have not done that yet. But that's just another way I could use my money, that isn't trying to satisfy my boredom. And then another thing that I think of is just giving whatever money I have left over, give it to the homeless people, and that would be an amazing feeling, because I've been homeless before. I've been I've lived in a van, I've lived in a tent. Okay, I understand what it's like to be homeless. Now I'm gonna be honest, it was kind of an adventure for me, because I had a whole bunch of magic mushrooms, and when I jumped into being homeless, it was kind of like, oh, this is a new experience. I got I'm tripping on magic mushrooms, and I kind of made but it was suffering eventually, because when I ran out of magic mushrooms and I was in the hot summer and sweating, and I was getting uncomfortable, and it was becoming unbearable. And I was like, yeah, I gotta find something. And I got a van, I lived in the van, and then I finally got a room, the room I'm living in now. But I did find some other couches and some other places to live in before this place. But, I did get a roof over my head, and made sure I took care of my shelter needs. They talk about, take care of our basic survival needs. But, since I've been homeless, and the thing is, we don't know, a lot of people, they try to make guesses and assume things about, I don't want to say a lot of people, but some people will make guesses and assume things about homeless people, like they're drug addicts, or that they purposely chose to be homeless, or they did something horrible and they deserve to be homeless, or they, like, you don't know their stories, right? We don't know, like, some of these people lost their job, their wife left them, they got their kids taken away from them. Some of these people, like me, I got kicked out of my mom's house and I had nowhere to go. Like, you don't know their stories, you don't know why they are homeless. And they say that they were a drug addict and they got addicted to their drug, and they started doing drugs at their job, and they started abusing their kids. And to make up these stories about homeless people, you don't know who they are, you don't know their story until you ask them and you hear their stories. But nobody wants to sit there, or not, I don't want to say nobody, but some people don't want to sit there and listen to a homeless people. But you can make a homeless people feel better. You can make a homeless person feel better just by listening to them and letting them tell their story, because they might not have anybody they could talk to, and you know, it makes them feel better that knowing or having someone help them feel like they're heard, and that just having someone listen to you, you know, it's nice to have. But you know, giving them money and not, you know, assuming and guessing that they're going to be using it for drugs or something illegal, just trying to help them and do a generous act, an act of generosity, and just do something nice can help them feel better and help you feel better. And just let go of whatever assumptions or guesses and whatever that you have against homeless people. Just try to see them as a human being that probably made a mistake or probably got unlucky, and you know, maybe their, you know, license expired and it's just hard for them to get a job, and they just got unlucky and unfortunate and they ended up in that position, in that situation. So you just don't know their story. So you know, just ask them if they want to talk about it, and offer them a listening ear, and you know, and try to give them money. Now, I don't want to tell people what to do with their money, but I want to give them money because I you know, whatever they use it for, it will still help them, and I'm sure they'll help themselves, you know, with food or whatever they, you know, it's up to them how they want to spend the money. It's up to them. You know, I don't want people telling me what to spend my money on, and it's like, if you're giving me the money for free, it's like you don't want to interrogate them. What are you going to spend this money on? They don't want to hear that. Just do a nice thing for them, and you know, nothing, and expect nothing in return. And so I want to do it because I was homeless before. So in the video, I was talking about why I want to give homeless people money, and I was talking about I was homeless before, but I also want to say for Jesus. And why I say that is because Jesus said that we cannot serve two masters. We can't have two masters. And when he said that we can't serve money and God, okay? And so he said that in the Bible. And then he also said, when he was observing, you know, people, there was this, I think that, I can't remember, or like a pond or something where there's like, where you donate money for, you know, I can't remember what the donation was for, but it was kind of like a charity or something like that. And a whole bunch of like tax collectors and like rich people came in, and they threw some money in, and a widow, a very poor widow came and gave, it wasn't much money, but it was all that she had left, and she gave that, gave it all to that, I think it was a pond or like a fountain, an empty fountain or something that they put the money in, and she came and put all that she had left, and these rich men came and put a small percentage of what they had of their money into this donation. And Jesus said, this woman, this widow, has given more of what she has and all that she has left. Okay, I reread the widow's offering, where, you know, Jesus is talking about the widow's donation, and it was a treasury. And he said, he pointed out that this widow, this poor widow, has casted all that she had, all of her living, more than what was already donated in the treasury, because that was only a small percentage or a small amount of their abundance. And this poor widow gave all that she had left, you know, all of her living. And so he was trying to explain the differences between the characters, the difference of the characters, and how her money donation to the treasury was different from the donation of people with much abundance and only given a small donation. So, and so that's why I'm trying my best to learn from Jesus on how I can be better and smart with my money. So, yeah. And so, you know, I've been there and I understand, and I want to help homeless people, you know, the best way I can and the best way I know how to, with the limited amount of money that I have, and, you know, where I am too, because I have to, you know, I did see some homeless people, you know, nearby, but when I went to go, you know, in their, you know, usual place that they were at, when I tried to go give them money, they weren't there. So I have to go find maybe a homeless shelter or somewhere where I could find homeless people so that I could give them money. But that's what I want to do with my money, and give them homeless. But then I was thinking, you have situations like that where, you know, people who have too much money on their hands and too much time on their hands, and they're bored out of their mind and they commit crime for amusement and entertainment. But then you also have, and those people probably have, you know, trauma, or they probably, you know, from their childhood, maybe they had abusive parents, or maybe they got bullied a lot growing up, and maybe something happened to them to make them the way that they are. And actually, I want to talk about, you know, going into that, you know, and even the homeless situation, right? I want to go into, because there are situations like Mr. Negative from Spider-Man, who ran a homeless shelter with Peter and his Aunt May, and he still became Spider-Man's villain, even though he ran a homeless shelter and he was helping people and helping Peter and his Aunt May. He still became Spider-Man's villain, and he became a villain because he wanted revenge on Norman Osborn because he caused the death of his parents during an experiment that, you know, from what I read online, and I played the game too, but, you know, it's apparently an unethical experiment, and his parents died because of Norman Osborn's rich, you know, he's a rich man, a very rich man, and, you know, one of his rich experiments, you know, playing with money, and that's kind of what I mean, but his parents were the consequences of him playing with money and running one of his experiments, and he, you know, lost his parents, so he had to grieve that, and so he wanted revenge, and so he became Spider-Man's villain, trying to get revenge on Norman Osborn. But you know, even though he ran a homeless shelter, but even though he got, you know, Spider-Man put him in jail and everything, when he got out of jail, he did end up helping Spider-Man, or I don't know if he escaped from jail or if he got out, or what happened, but he did end up helping Spider-Man later on, and that was part of his, you know, redemption arc. So, you know, you have instances and examples like that where, you know, you have people that, you know, run a homeless shelter and they still commit crime and become a villain. But, you know, understanding his story where he was just trying to get revenge on a very rich man, and that, you know, caused the death of his parents. So, you know, when you understand it from that perspective, and that's what I mean by some of these people, yeah, they're bored out of their mind and they got too much money and too much time on their hands, but they probably have some event and some trauma from their childhood that they're running away from, and that's causing them to be the way that they are. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors into this that, you know, play into this. So, and I'm still trying to understand, but yeah, that's what I'll pretty much say for this video.